Hello and welcome back to my channel, Welshman Reviews, and welcome back to Horror Friday. So this is episode 7, and like I said in my Insidious, the Red Door review, this is going to be a ranking for the Insidious movies. So I think a little thing to begin is, I do like all these movies. I don't consider any of them bad. My bottom, be honest man, the 4 before my top one could pretty much all change hands. It depends how I feel and all that, and I might be a couple of surprises in here, maybe from people who love horror movies and all that. There's, for some of my picks and for them and all that, nobody be surprised pretty much for my number 1. But let's dive in straight away with number 5. So number 5, and I think this one will be a surprise because this is pretty much kind of loved by most people and all that, and don't get me wrong, I like it as well, but it is Insidious Chapter 3. Yes, I know, this is directed by Lee Winnell and written by him, which I think they're all written by him. So it's the first one directed by him. Seems that James Wan directed the last 2. It's, to me, I just don't find this as entertaining probably as the other movies. Some of my likes is pretty much bit of a tiny bit more of a backstory to Elise, but we get at with a later movie. We do, so it's nice to learn a little bit about her in this, but we don't learn too much. The same as Specs and I'm going to blank on the other guy's name now, unfortunately for that. I am Specs and Tucker. It is. So we get a kind of an origin story of how they all meet for this one. It is a bit of a different setting to the first 2 movies where it's a family thing. This is more of a family one, but it is in an apartment building as well. And as all these movies have, they have an interesting creature or demon that harasses the families and stuff like that, which all the movies have, but this one was a pretty good, interesting one as well. My kind of dislikes for this is, unfortunately, I don't find it that scary. I don't think it was that many jump scares that really got me compared to some of the other ones. It is uninteresting side characters, to be honest. I wasn't that invested in the family, to be honest. Even though Dermot Mulroney, if I butchered that, playing the father, Sean Brenner, they all do an adequate job, the side characters, but they don't really engage me enough for me to really care that much about them. But yeah, that is my number 5. So, coming in at number 4, and this might surprise a few people, it is the newest one, Insidious, the Red Door. I gave it a kind of a favourable review. It is, like I said, I probably do forgive horror films a little bit more than I do with other films. I do, but I enjoyed that it was the trilogy to the Lambert family. It was, and it had quite a lot of jump scares. Some worked, some didn't. It didn't... the characters, like the Lambert family, when they're together, and they have brilliant chemistry and all that, especially a couple of the Owen Wilson and his son, blanked his name now as well, unfortunately. It is. I do like the chemistry, and unfortunately some of the dislikes from it, very underwhelming finish, which I think I said in my review as well, very lackluster. It didn't bring in the demon enough, in my opinion. Some of the dead bodies, like the demon, who's supposed to be the main bad guy or the villain of the thing, you hardly see him in this movie. Yeah, and the thing, and you don't see the family together that often and all that. Pretty much Owen Wilson is with his son in the beginning of the movie. Then he sees his wife and his other son pretty much in the thing. The daughter's non-existent. It is. Unfortunately, you don't see Tucker and Specs that much in this movie. You see one clip of them on like a YouTube video and that, and Elise is only in it for a little bit as well. So yeah, unfortunately for finishing off the Lambert story, it was very underwhelming. So that's why I put it at number 4. So yes, coming in at number 4, and this might surprise a few people as well, is Insidious: The Last Key. So this is the 4th one in the series, another prequel to the Lambert one. So the 3rd one is pretty much a prequel to this one, and this one's a prequel to that one. So this one does carry on the Elise's new career now, with Specs and Tucker going into business, trying to help people and that. But I did like the story of this one, her going back to her childhood house where stuff is still happening and all that. We have a nice little beginning, a prequel of her being a kid and showing how unfortunately her mother died and how her father was an abusive father and stuff. But we do get a nice little resolution later on, showing that if his father wasn't really that bad, it's just the demon that was there with the keys for the hands, fingers, and that kind of made him what he was. So it's like her talking to people, like there's some certain scenes in it where she's talking to someone and it's an actual real person that her father or the next guy later on in the movie kidnaps and puts in the cellar. So I did enjoy the story of this, to be honest. Probably my favourite story apart from probably the first 2 movies. It is. I did like the Specs, Tucker and Elise chemistry. Very good in the movie. Yeah, bringing back the good acting. Again, another very good villain and all that. Something a little bit different than the other movies. Like I said, a good, interesting movie. A couple of dislikes and all that. Could have done more with the family aspect of her family, because she does come back and sees her brother and his kids. Kind of rushed that a little bit, in my opinion. They could have done a little bit more now. You kind of don't see them in any of the other movies, unfortunately, and a tad too long, I think. Probably could have. It's only, all these movies are around an hour and 50 minutes. I think it could have cut about 10-15 minutes out of this movie. Some of the fat that you didn't really need into it and all that, or maybe changed it for other parts of the story, more for Elise and more maybe for when she was a kid. It is. But I do really enjoy this one, to be honest, and all that. Don't get me wrong, the directing and the thing is nothing really special or anything, but I did enjoy the story and the more about Elise and her interactions with her family and Tucker and Specs. So yeah, that is my number 4. My number 3. So pretty much coming into my top 2 now, and there's no surprise, it's the first 2. It is, but coming in at number 2 is Insidious Chapter 2. I still class this one really high. My dislikes for this, which I'll get to, I think justify why it could have gone lower. It'll never get higher than obviously what my number 1 is going to be. But be honest, man, like these bottom floors, some of them could change a thing. It depends what my mood is when I'm watching them. But I do like this. I like how it continues the story of the first one, the Lambert one. Elise is dead now after the first movie. She comes back and trying to help him in the further and stuff like that. Where we have Owen Wilson, the father, it is, who is now possessed after the first movie. It is, so a bit of a danger with him and family as well. Kind of a bit of a twist on the first one where he tries to save Dalton, but in this one it's Dalton now that's got to save his father and stuff. So yeah, kind of thing. I like the thing. The atmosphere similar to the first one, not as great as the first one, but I do like the atmosphere. Directing and acting, James Wan directs this movie very well directed. He's got a style. It is, you're watching a James Wan movie. The actors and actresses in this movie all have great chemistry. I think they've casted this movie perfectly. It is. My only dislikes is a bit of repetitive stuff. compared like the first movie, you've kind of seen it in the first movie. But I do like how some of the stuff that happened in the first movie, they kind of explain in this one that it was actually the father making some of the noises from kind of the future coming back in the the realm it is. So yeah, it's a bit repetitive, but yeah, very good movie. So in for elimination, my number one is the first Insidious. This movie, with this and The Conjuring a couple of years later, also directed by James Wan, kind of got me back into horrors after a bit of a lull in the early 2000s, to be honest. More to the 2000s it is. They were bringing out some really bad horrors, to be honest, and yeah, I was a bit thing. But after bringing this out and Conjuring, kind of got my interest back up in horror again, because horrors to me are not all about blood and gore. Don't get me wrong, I do like the odd slasher, the blood and gore and all that, but I do like a good gore story or something like that. It doesn't have to be blood and gore and loads of deaths and all that. You give me a good story and a good atmosphere like this movie, and I'm set. I am like, everything for this movie was kind of hit perfectly, to be honest. It's got a good story. You know, instead of a haunted house, you have a kid that's been haunted. It is, which kind of comes back to The Last Key, where I think the way I watched it and all that, it was Elise's fault that Dalton got haunted in the first place. Because when she opens the door and sees him when he falls off the ladder, she leaves the door open, unfortunately. So that's a nice little, when you watch these movies and you see stuff like that. But yeah, the atmosphere for this movie is brilliant. I love James Wan's style of direction, like I said in number 2. Absolutely brilliant. Lee Winnell's wrote all these, and he's done some all really good stories, but this is probably the best one he wrote. It is, like I said, the actings are brilliant. The atmosphere is brilliant as well. He uses the music and noises kind of perfectly for the jump scares. I don't think there's no cheap jump scares in this movie. I think they're all well earned. They are. And yeah, I just absolutely love this movie. It's up there as one of my favourite horror movies I regularly go back to watch. So that is my rankings for the Insidious movies. They're my rankings. If you don't agree with them, that's great. Tell me down in the comments what your ones is. Give me some reasons why you choose which order you put these movies in and that. But yeah, that is the end of episode 7. Hope you enjoyed the video. I enjoy doing them. I do. I'm trying to get really back into the horror thing. Seems that, you know, Halloween season will be coming up now in a month or two, in just over a month and a half probably it is. So yeah, I love September and October, kind of my 2 favourite months of the year. Hopefully I'm going to be ploughing out a load of horror videos around that time as well. It is. So yeah, give it a thumbs up if you like this video. Like I said, in the comments, tell me what your rankings of these movies is and how much you like. If you like these movies or you don't like these movies, I'd like to know reasons why I do. And if you'd like to see more videos, I guess, please subscribe to my channel. Now, see you next time.